I've always had two shadows. Not one like everyone else. Two. One is my regular shadow, the one that mimics my every move, stretching and shrinking with the light. The other one is different. It's been with me since I was born, or at least as far back as I can remember. My parents called it my birthmark, a little quirk. They didn't see what I saw. They couldn't. This second shadow has its own mind. It's darker, almost a void, and it doesn't follow the rules of light. When I lift my arm, my real shadow lifts its arm. The other one might just stay there, or worse, its arm might twitch ever so slightly in a different direction. At first it was subtle, a slight lag, a minor deviation. People would just think it was a trick of the light, an odd angle. But I knew. I felt it. Growing up was a constant exercise in managing it. I avoided brightly lit places with multiple light sources. Supermarkets were a nightmare, with their long aisles and fluorescent buzz, creating a dozen versions of me and a dozen opportunities for my other shadow to misbehave. I'd see it out of the corner of my eye, its head turning to look at something down the aisle long after I had passed. It was like being tethered to a silent, disobedient twin made of darkness. I tried to explain it to my parents once when I was 7. I was in my room, the nightlight casting long, dancing shapes on the wall. My regular shadow was a big, friendly blob next to my bed, but the other one was standing. It was detached from my feet, a tall, slender silhouette in the corner of the room. Just watching, I screamed. My dad rushed in, flipped on the main light, and the shadow snapped back to my heels, merging with the real one until it was almost indistinguishable. He just saw a scared kid who'd had a nightmare. He didn't see the way its edges seemed to ripple, to fight against being contained. As I got older, it became more brazen. I remember a high school dance. The gym was filled with strobing lights and a disco ball. A kaleidoscope of shadows danced on the walls. For everyone else, it was a party. For me, it was chaos. I was trying to dance with a girl I liked, and in a flash of green light I saw it. My shadow was there, doing a clumsy imitation of my moves. But the other one, the second one, was standing behind my date. Its long, inky fingers were reaching out, almost touching her hair. I flinched, pulling her away abruptly. She looked at me, confused and a little hurt. I couldn't explain. "Let's get some air," was all I could manage, my heart pounding. That was the night I realized it had intentions. It wasn't just a passive observer anymore. It was interested in things. It seemed to be drawn to people I cared about, to moments of happiness. It was like a parasite feeding on my life, casting its own darkness over my bright spots. The real turning point came in college. I was studying late in the library, a quiet, deserted corner all to myself. The only light was a small desk lamp. It was one of those nights where the world feels small and manageable. I was deep into a textbook, my regular shadow a still shape slumped over the pages. Then I saw movement. I looked up. The second shadow had peeled away from me. It was standing by a bookshelf across the aisle. It wasn't just a silhouette anymore. It was gaining a texture. It looked less like a shadow and more like a hole in reality, a patch of absolute nothingness in the shape of a person. It reached out a hand, not to the books, but to the wall behind them, and its fingers sank into the solid plaster, like it was water. I watched, frozen, as its hand disappeared up to the wrist. Then it pulled back, and the wall was untouched. The shadow slid back towards me, melting back into my own, and I was left staring at the bookshelf, my mind reeling. From that day on, I knew I was dealing with something that wasn't from this world. It wasn't just a shadow. It was an entity, bound to me for reasons I couldn't comprehend. I started documenting everything. I set up cameras in my apartment. I needed proof. I needed to understand. The footage was chilling. When I slept, it didn't. It would detach from my sleeping form and roam the apartment. It would stand over my bed, a featureless head tilted down as if studying me. It would trace the outlines of the furniture, its form gliding silently through the room. One night, the footage caught it stopping in front of a mirror. It stood there for hours, just looking, but there was no reflection. The mirror showed the empty room behind where the shadow stood, but the shadow itself was not reflected. It was as if it didn't exist in the same plane of reality the mirror did. The most terrifying thing is its growth. It's not just about its intentions anymore. It's physically changing. Even in complete darkness, where there should be no shadows at all, it's there. I'll wake up in the pitch black of my room, and I can sense it, a patch of cold, an area of even deeper blackness. And it's getting longer, taller. My own shadow is bound by my height, by the angle of the light. This one has no such restrictions. Some nights its head touches the ceiling while I'm lying in bed. I've tried everything. Exorcists, spiritual healers, scientists. The religious types told me I was cursed, that a demon was latched onto my soul. They performed rituals that left me exhausted, but did nothing to the shadow. If anything, it seemed amused, its form wiggling and dancing on the wall behind the priest as he chanted. The scientists were fascinated but useless. They took readings, scanned me with every machine they had. They found nothing, no anomaly. To them, I was just a man with a wild story. I showed them the videos. They called it clever editing, digital artifacts. Lately, it has started to interact with the physical world in more direct ways. It's no longer just sinking its hand into a wall. The other day, I was cooking. I turned my back for a second, and a knife from the block on the counter clattered to the floor, landing inches from my foot. When I spun around, my shadow was exactly where it should be, a harmless mimic. But I knew. I saw the ripple at its edge, the phantom movement of an arm retracting. It's testing its strength, pushing its boundaries. I'm afraid of what happens when it's strong enough. What is its goal? Does it want to replace me? To take my place? I look in the mirror now, and I see the fear in my own eyes. But sometimes, for a split second, I see something else in my reflection's shadow, a flicker of independence, a hint of a smirk. I can't sleep much anymore. The moment I close my eyes, I know it's free to roam. I spend my nights in the brightest room in my apartment, surrounded by lamps, all of them pointing at me. I try to pin it down, to overwhelm it with light from every angle, to shrink it into non-existence. But it doesn't work. The lights just create more of my real shadow, and the other one hides within them, waiting. Last night, something new happened. I was sitting here just like this, surrounded by my fortress of light. I was exhausted. My eyes were heavy. I must have dozed off for just a moment. When my head snapped back up, it was standing in front of me, separate. It wasn't on the wall. It was in the middle of the room. A three-dimensional figure of pure, solid black. It had depth. It had presence. It raised its hand, and this time I could see the faint outline of fingers. And then I heard a sound. A soft, dry whisper like leaves scraping on pavement. It wasn't from my throat. It was from the shadow. It was trying to speak. I don't know what it said. It was a single syllable, a guttural rasp that the air absorbed instantly. But I know it was a word. It's learning. It's evolving. It's moving beyond a shadow and becoming something else. Something that was born with me, has grown with me, and now, I think, wants to live without me. I'm not its host anymore. I'm its cage, and it is breaking the lock. I don't know how much longer I can keep it contained. I don't know what will happen to me when it finally breaks free, or what it will do to the world. All I know is that my time is running out, and the darkness is getting ready to step into the light.